All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a critical, honestly pretty terrifying breaking point in our modern world. We're asking, what actually happens when massive, world changing infrastructures just outgrow human control? We are living in this era defined by colossal leaps in technology and structural ambition. But as we're about to see, designing these massive systems, that's actually the easy part. Controlling them, well, that's where the crisis really begins. To wrap our heads around this tension between ambition and reality, we're going to move quickly through 6 key areas. We'll start with systems of power and the green energy ambition, move into gridlock and accountability, pivot over to the algorithmic battlefield, look at data ghosts and vulnerabilities, and finally ask, who controls the system? And really, that leads us right into the central question we've got to keep in the back of our minds today. Who actually controls the systems that control our world? Whether we're talking about the raw electricity powering the device you're watching this on, or the invisible data streams dictating modern military strikes, the foundational challenge is exactly the same. What happens when the speed of the system completely outpaces our human ability to oversee it? Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Systems of Power and the Green Energy Ambition. We're going to look closely at the physical grid first. 35%. That is the massive, highly ambitious target set by the Philippine government to increase the share of clean energy in their national power mix by the year 2030. Sounds great, right? But to understand the friction here, you have to look backward for just a second. Over the last 2 decades, coal power saw a staggering 431% increase just to keep up with demand. So shifting away from that creates a massive energy gap. You're trying to force a transition at a pace rarely seen in modern infrastructure. To bridge a gap that big, you need scale. And I mean mind-boggling scale. Take a look at the SPNX Terra solar development. We are talking about 3,400 megawatts of solar panels paired with 4,000 megawatt hours of battery storage. The price tag? Roughly 200 billion pesos. This single initiative aims to generate an estimated 5% of the total volume of the entire Philippine grid. It literally dwarfs existing global solar parks. We're talking about an ambition so massive, it fundamentally reshapes the geography it's built on. So, how do these massive projects actually get off the ground? Well, the Department of Energy uses something called the Green Energy Auction Program, or GEAP. It's essentially a 3-step dance. Developers secure a service contract, they post a bid bond, and then they enter a reverse auction to try and win a guaranteed 20-year payment agreement. On paper, it's brilliant. It's designed to be a perfectly frictionless bureaucratic machine to rapidly generate clean energy. But actually securing that contract brings us face to face with a harsh physical reality in Section 2, gridlock and accountability. Because as it turns out, bureaucracy moves at the speed of light. But pouring concrete and laying high-voltage transmission lines, that takes years. To really put this bottleneck into perspective, nearly 18,000 megawatts of green energy capacity has just been canceled, terminated. That is a massive volume of power spread across 163 canceled projects in just the last 2 years. Why? Because developers are hitting a brick wall. Their mandated project delivery dates are arriving way, way before the physical transmission grid is actually built and ready to absorb their electricity. And the state? They are no longer accommodating these delays. We are seeing a fierce crackdown and a strict shift toward compliance. Just look at the stark contrast between these corporate entities tied to Representative Leandro Leviste. On one hand, you have SPNEC, now majority backed by Meralco, which remains compliant with the Terra Solar project. But on the other hand, linked private entities like SPFHI are staring down a jaw-dropping 24 billion peso administrative penalty for failing to deliver on their contracts. Let's make this even more concrete. Take the 120 megawatt General Santos solar power project. The Department of Energy launched a lawsuit to recover a 1.185 billion peso performance bond for this specific project. Why? Because it failed to deliver a single watt of electricity. The state alleges the company basically let their performance bond expire without replacing it, which completely derailed the entire renewable energy goal for the Mindanao grid. And the DOE is not messing around here. They are citing the Public Service Act to pierce the corporate veil. In plain English, that means they are bypassing the corporate entity itself to hold the executives personally and criminally liable for knowingly and willfully neglecting their obligations. We are talking about potential prison terms of up to 12 years. The message from the government is crystal clear. Speculative development without execution now carries massive, life-altering personal risk. Now, this crisis of physical infrastructure brings us to an entirely different, yet strangely parallel world in Section 3, the algorithmic battlefield. Just as the energy grid struggles with the speed of bureaucracy, global military networks are currently grappling with algorithmic warfare. This is where AI systems execute decisions way faster than humans can verify them. We have to be clear here, we are no longer talking about human analysts standing in a room moving pins on a map. We are talking about automated algorithmic systems actively processing the entirety of a global battlefield in real time. You have companies like Palantir, valued at nearly $400 billion, building this inescapable architecture of control. They do it across three main pillars: fusing military data with a system called Gotham, optimizing civilian enterprises with Foundry, and using AI to build predictive decision chains. These platforms literally ingest thousands of terabytes of data every single day. From camera feeds to biometric signatures, they seamlessly link raw intelligence collection directly to military action. And let's not sugarcoat this. Palantir CEO Alex Karp was incredibly blunt when he said, "Our product is used to kill." That is a brutal reality check. We aren't talking about optimizing a corporate spreadsheet here. These are lethal instruments. This technology classifies the physical, living world into data points, fundamentally altering how life and death decisions get executed on a geopolitical scale. Which brings us to a number that should give everyone pause. 120 seconds. 2 minutes. That is the terrifying kill chain window. It's the maximum amount of time from an AI detecting an anomaly to a lethal strike being ordered. Yes, it removes human hesitation, but crucially, it also removes human verification. It is physically impossible for a human operator to genuinely audit a complex AI's logic in 120 seconds. The human is, for all intents and purposes, out of the loop. But just as the physical energy grid has its bottlenecks, this digital military grid has a profound, highly exploitable flaw. Let's look at Section 4, Data Ghosts and Vulnerabilities. Based on leaked intelligence, adversaries aren't just looking for this flaw, they're actively weaponizing it through something called epistemic warfare, often using an algorithm known as Ralph-1. Think about it. They don't need to break into firewalls or steal your passwords. They attack the AI's belief system. By tweaking data signatures, they generate synthetic ghosts, virtual anomalies that look mathematically identical to real targets. It completely saturates the machine's attention. Because adversaries have actually open-sourced this code, thousands of independent developers are creating this relentless Hydra effect. You cut off one source, two more pop up. Traditional hacking is like trying to break into a heavily guarded, centralized vault, which is almost useless against decentralized military clouds anyway. But epistemic warfare, it's like flooding the bank with thousands of perfectly disguised fake customers until the whole system just shuts down. And here is where the math gets genuinely scary. Military systems often operate with a baseline 10% acceptable error margin. Seems low enough, right? But scale that up. If you saturate the AI with 1 million false ghost targets, that 10% error rate scales up proportionately. It mathematically guarantees that the system will make thousands of lethal mistakes, catching innocent infrastructure and civilians in an automated, completely uncontrollable crossfire. Which brings us to the critical synthesis of everything we've talked about today. Section 6. Who controls the system? We've seen the grounded, concrete reality of energy grids and the invisible terror of algorithmic warfare. Whether you're dealing with 1 billion pesos in forfeited bonds and missing megawatts, or an overwhelmed AI operating a 120-second kill chain, both architectures showcase the exact same danger. Its ambition sprinting way past our ability to actually steer the ship. In the physical world, bureaucratic machinery outpaced the transmission lines. In the digital world, data processing outpaced human conscience. So, as we embrace these massive technological leaps, you really have to ask yourself, who bears the ultimate moral and financial weight when there is no human left to hit the brakes? Are we designing systems that serve our future? Or are we just locking ourselves into architectures of control that we can no longer command? Because when the system inevitably fails, the most terrifying realization might just be that nobody is actually at the wheel.